I'm very much looking forward to that. I will, together with Filippo, set the scene a little bit, the bigger picture, if you want, how we arrived at this topic and this approach that Enoch has sketched out. I would take at least 15 minutes to mention all the things that are relevant that I cannot do, but we split the presentation in two parts. So Filippo will go into this meaningful human control and talk about how it is applied in a project that they do as a Dutch Research Council project on meaningful human control and assisted driving autonomous vehicles. And so you can see the concept in action, if you want. And it started, we feel a little bit responsible because we took this notion of meaningful human control out of discussions that started 3 years ago, and we participated in, Filippo and I, in Geneva, when it was about meaningful human control over lethal autonomous weapon systems. And we noticed that the diplomats and the international lawyers were all talking about meaningful human control, and they were very happy about, this term, that they came up with this term. But then we, coming from a technical university, we thought about, we have to explain this to our engineer colleagues in Delft. So how are we going to do that? And that prompted us to write a paper on a conceptual analysis that provided a conceptual analysis of this term, and Filippo will give you the gist of that. So what I will do is present you the bigger picture in 3 steps, under 20 minutes, the ethical problems and how I lump them together or cluster them, and then a little bit about how to do ethics, but Evgeny will also go into more detail later on. So first the bigger picture, but first I need a glass of water because I'm suffering from a cold. It's over there. Okay, good, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, the bigger picture. Really quickly, I'm also advising the European Commission. Has done something strange there, but anyway, they all think that AI is very important. So it's and you can find many quotes. It's going to change our lives. This guy also thinks if you get dominance in AI, you will rule the world. In China, they also think that that's the case, and they're using it. This guy is using it in Silicon Valley, is using it in a completely different way. So, short terms, there's a battle for digital supremacy going on. And in Brussels, the question is, where is Europe going? Where does it leave us? And is Europe going to be the museum of the world, nice to visit and take pictures of, or is it going to be the cradle of a new enlightenment? Could well be. Well, the Commission has said, never mind China and the US in their kind of relaxing the laws on use of data or privacy and training up their deep learning algorithms. Let's just stick with our core values and let's focus on that. And we know exactly what these are. It's the Charter of Fundamental Rights and the Convention on Human Rights, and Evgeny will go into detail in how we can design for them. So Macron actually made an interesting suggestion 3 years ago. There's a third way. There's a European approach that is true to these constitutive legal binding treaties that make, put our human rights and ethical principles core. AI for humanity is. Brussels talks about systemic rivals. So these are no longer ideologies, these are coherent clusters of policies, infrastructure, monetary policy, military strategy, and all powered by AI and big data. So you have the US, Silicon Valley model, innovate fast in the gray zone, break things first and apologize later, minimal regulation, Chicago school economics, libertarian values, hard power, and Homo economicus and strong individualist. And then you have China, and that is socialism with Chinese characteristics, social harmony, party rule, sharp power, and a behaviorist, utilitarian, collectivist kind of view of man. And Europe, as I just explained, a Kantian conception of the person as autonomous, free, and a responsible agent. And so we want to, in Europe, Brussels wants to hang on to that conception. So the discussion about a good digital society is about this. It is about a model of man and it's about a model of society, and that is what is at stake. So if we are going to discuss meaningful human control, to a large extent, we try to salvage this core idea. So what are these ethical problems? Now, of course, it goes without saying that these are all important. Safety, loss of lives, health, well-being, it's a no-brainer. Of course, we have to make sure that the robots that we produce out of our labs don't kill people and don't harm people. But I want to divvy up the ethical problems in a slightly different way. In a way that provides a certain coherence to them and relates them to the core problem that I've just sketched out for Europe, for the world, namely this conception of a responsible free agent that can be held responsible, that can feel responsible, and for which it is fair to hold that person responsible. Now you know that these are conditions, necessary conditions that need to be fulfilled for someone to be responsible. And you can find out by saying, okay, suppose that you accuse or suggest that someone is responsible. Someone could say, oh, well, sorry, I didn't know. Or sorry, I wasn't in control. Or sorry, I had no choice. Or sorry, I wasn't my good self. I did something because I thought other people expected this of me. Or I wanted to prove people wrong. So I did not on my own accord, but I took my cues from a social environment because people were looking over my shoulder, right? So all of these conditions undermine this idea my suggestion is that AI kind of could undermine all of these conditions for moral responsibility. So it's a big threat to a core idea of Western societies. So I'll just briefly go through them. We have made things extremely complex, and it will come back in many discussions today as a result of introducing big data and machine learning. It's become a little bit of a black box society, and we use it everywhere. It affects people in crucial ways. So we introduce possibly machine bias, the negative versions of it, or good versions, we don't know. As long as we don't know, we cannot justify what we have done. We don't know exactly what we're doing. A nice paper, has machine learning become alchemy? Well, in a certain way, it has become alchemy. The first AI legislation is already in place, and it addresses this problem. It's Article 22 of the GDPR, and that if you apply algorithms or machine learning to people and it affects them in a big way, then you have to be able to explain what you did. Right? So that's and some additional requirements. So some people think that AI itself could provide the solutions to this problem of transparency and the lack of knowledge, which chips away at one of the fundamental conditions for responsibility. Right? So we have to design for knowledge in such a way that we restore individuals, both the designers and the users, to a position of responsibility. So all kinds of attempts are made. You could try to torture the system in such a way that it gives you the information that you need in order to provide an account or a justification. You could do these kind of things, just so in identifying a zebra, where has the system been looking at, so that you can account for it. Very interesting work of Judea Pearl, also trying to kind of bludgeon these machine learning statistical systems in such a way and torture them that they give up their secrets and allow you to say something about the causal mechanisms that are underlying this. Work on algorithmic recourse. So you explain what the algorithms are to the people who are affected by it in such a way that you provide opportunities for the people affected to tamper with the algorithm. So if I would do this, then I would be selected for this procedure, or I would be admitted to Delft University. So perhaps I should spend 2 more weeks on, scoring better on my TOEFL test or something like that. So, and all of these attempts, these engineering attempts, are made to do what? To be able to say, yes, we had the adequate knowledge of what we were doing. So to restore this knowledge condition. Then this condition of control. Oh, sorry, I wasn't in control, right? the quest for meaningful human control, and Filippo will talk about that, so I will skip over that. But we have seen the examples of how this could really be a problem, especially when you start to apply it to the lethal autonomous weapon systems. Yeah, you like this target, you may also like that target. You know, it's a recommender system, specially recommended for you. We don't want these things, right? People to throw up their hands and not be accountable because they were not in control or they didn't know what was happening, right? So they have plausible deniability because AI has helped them to deny that they are responsible. So this is what Filippo will talk about. So that we need to restore ourselves to this position. Yes, we had the kind of control that is a necessary condition to take responsibility. Freedom and choice. I see a colleague, Caspar Chorus, and it's very much related to your work, and AI could be a threat of undermining this condition for responsibility. If you're, sorry, there was nothing to choose, or I wasn't aware that I could choose, right? So people are locked up in these filter bubbles. It's sufficiently known now, but this is a big threat. If you have big data, you have machine learning, and you have advanced behavioral science, then freedom to choose is becoming a little bit of a problem. And this is one that you know very well, but other people may not have seen, and I think it drives home the message very clearly. You can subscribe to The Economist for $59, or you can subscribe to the print edition. So this is the online for $59, this is the print for $125, or special offer, both for $125, right? So everyone, you're a good company if you say, well, third option. Well, let's do both. Here is an alternative choice architecture that is not you know, just an accident that it's there. The Economist online for $59, or the print and the web for $125. Now everyone says, oh, well, let's forget about the paperwork. Let's do just the online subscription. You see that the way you line up these alternatives, you engineer the choice set, prompts you to pick this one. Right? This is the outcome of advanced behavioral research, a lot of big data on how people choose, and a lot of pattern discovery in how people are motivated and what makes them tick. Right? So if you have that, you are sitting duck for these people, as Caspar knows very well. And this is going to be a problem for that third condition of responsibility, freedom of choice. Right? So we had knowledge, we had control, we have freedom of choice. And AI is chipping away, possibly undermining all of those conditions. That's the idea. And look at what Sandstein, the nudging pope, says himself. It is possible that companies that provide clear, simple products would do poorly in the marketplace because they are not taking advantage of people's propensity to blunder. That is what is at stake. And they are greatly helped by big data and machine learning. AI is their game, and in a way that we don't have access to it. And of course it has been used also in the political realm, as has become clear here. I couldn't find a nicer picture of this guy, but you know, this is what has been at stake: micro-targeting and manipulation of choice sets. So we wrote this paper: Will democracy survive big data and artificial intelligence in Scientific American? We have to be able to say truly, yes, we made our choices freely and we stand by them. Privacy. It's a slightly atypical way of involving privacy here, but I think it can work. Same thing here, big data and machine learning, AI, combination, very powerful. Yes, we know who you are, where you have been, and more or less what you think, and we need to take this very seriously. We have machine learning, reconstructing what people have been looking at without knowing what you have been looking at, actually just by analyzing your brain waves. Right? So this is what people have been looking at, and this is what the system kind of does on the basis of the analysis of their neuro activity. So that's already quite interesting, right? And we know these kind of studies, you know, from 300 likes, the system can better predict what you will do on a psychological test than your partner. So that is, so doing what others expect us to do or to be right, becomes a threat to our freedom and the freedom that we require to say, yes, I own this decision. I did this on my own accord and not because people were looking over my shoulder and expected me to be this or to do that. And this is one of the important elements or ingredients in privacy. So that we can say, yes, my choices were mine. I made them freely, they were under my control, and I know exactly what I have been doing. And therefore, I am responsible. Right? I'm feeling responsible. I can take responsibility. You can hold me responsible. So that is what is at stake. We're designing a society in all the applications that tries to optimize these conditions, these moral conditions, so that we salvage the idea of moral responsibility on which our whole society is built. Our legal institutions, our social institutions, all built on this very core idea. Not necessarily in China, not necessarily in Russia. They may be willing to abandon those ideas. For the moment, I have the impression that we are not. So let's try to tick those boxes in our designs. Now, this is an interesting thing, and you know this, of course, the trolley problem. We are sick and tired of it. We've seen so many of these examples. But the interesting thing is if you use this and teach this and discuss it with students in Delft, they say, oh, well, should this guy, do this or that? And then you bring your Kant or your utilitarian theory to it, and we go into an analysis. But engineers say, bad design. Bad design because the problem that this poor guy has is a function of the design. He can only do A and B, just pull a lever or not, right? So he may have wanted to do something else, but it was not designed in. Never you will find this in a philosophical analysis. Because it's, of course, in a philosophy seminar room, it's a stupid question. You're asked to leave immediately because it's a thought experiment. Right? You're not supposed to tamper with the thought experiment because it's there to give you a hard time. But if you're thinking about the real world, then the engineering remark is a very good one because we want the world to be safer. Right? We want the world to not, if possible, have dilemmas and create moral problems for operators. We want to prevent that. So we'll have to look at the design history of which idiot designed it in this way, right? So this is the question. We have a responsibility for the responsibility of others. This is a second order responsibility. We have responsibility for the responsibility of others. Now, how do we do ethics in the age of AI? Probably running out of time. And Evgeny will go into more detail, so I'm very comfortable doing this very fast. It is by design. And I think all the examples have shown clearly that you can design a bench in this way. You don't have to hire 20 people to chase away people if you don't want to sleep, them to sleep on it. So you can design these things in. It's a controversial example. We need to have a debate whether that is solving our problem. Perhaps we need to solve the problem in a different way than kind of building these kind of benches. But this is the key problem of value-sensitive design. This is a bunch of values, societal, moral requirements. They are non-functional requirements. And they have to be somehow, not like the iron rods in the bank, but they need to be built into everything we do, in the algorithms, in our coding, every detail of a system. And we have to be able to explain that we did a good job. So that's the idea. We do design for X, designing for all of these values by breaking them down from a very abstract level and until they hit design requirements that our colleagues at the technical units can work with. So these kind of things, privacy by design is a good example. If you want to count the number of people in this audience, but you don't want to give away their identities, you can do this. It's a very simple example of how you can design in privacy and at the same time have the functionality that you want out of the system. It's a simple thing, and of course it has given rise to a whole lot of technical solutions, coarse graining the data, K-anonymity, differential privacy, homomorphic encryption. Enoch knows all about this, privacy-preserving machine learning, etc. So these are attempts to hold on to these ethical values, design them in such a way that we make good use of all the AI without giving up on all the... And the same needs to be done for the conditions that I've just lined up and discussed on responsibility, and I think it can be done. The fascinating thing is that we have a wonderful team, and we have you here to discuss this with, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Without further ado, Filippo, who will tell you more about meaningful human control. Thank you.